Everybody, welcome to TraderMerlin Show. It is your Wednesday afternoon. Happy hump day, y'all. A volatile day for anybody who's long. You're loving it because the markets are just blowing up in the after-hour session. Thank you to our good old friend Nvidia, which, as we've talked about before, was our obvious popcorn trade of the day. And the chart kind of looked like that in the few minutes after the market closed. You saw a huge surge up, then it came crashing back down, went sideways a little while, and then all of a sudden, bam, to the moon. Right now, up about 10% in the after-hours session. So I decided we're going to make the show about that today. The topic is Nvidia does it again. And I said, give me a robot, some AI celebrating, looking all happy, etc. I'm going to run you through the numbers here, but let's just look at Nvidia after hours because it's pretty exceptional. Now, going into this, I got to say, honestly, I was sitting on the sidelines thinking, I want to trade this announcement, but it's just too risky for me. And in my younger gunslinger days, I'd have jumped all over this thing. My gut would have told me it's probably going to come crashing down, that we're going to see a gap up on the earnings. It'll shoot up right away after hours and then just come cratering back down. Because in my mind, this has been way overpriced, way overhyped. So many people talking about Nvidia as going to be the biggest company in the world at some point here soon, blah, blah, blah. Just kept going on and on and on about it. And I thought in my gut, I'm like, this is just way too overdone. It'll probably gap up high on earnings announcement, which they'll beat, and then it'll come crashing down. And it did not do anything of the sort. It just went parabolic from there. Thank goodness I don't like trading earnings announcements. So here is the chart of the daily of Nvidia. It's pretty crazy if you just think about where it was a year ago. If you go back to October, less than a year ago, October 12th, Nvidia was at $105. It is currently trading at $515. So my friend who works at Nvidia, loving it this way, loving it. Anyway, let's go look at the 1 minute chart. Now, I know I normally don't like to look at 1 minute, but when I have a popcorn trade of the day, right, when things I expect to look like this, I like to have a 1 minute chart because you can just see the people's just jubilation and fear and panic, etc. So let me zoom in here real quick, and this is what happened right after hours. Right, as soon as that market closed, this little blue shaded box started, and you can see it was quiet for about 8 minutes, and then it just popped up pretty quick, and I was like, no, that's not the announcement. There's no way it would only move, $7 on an earnings announcement. I thought this would be a 20, 30 point swing one way or the other. Personally, I thought to the downside. So you have that whiplash moment, which I tweeted about earlier. It's kind of comical, this whiplash of somebody was long right here and got really excited, and then literally this next 120 seconds gave every penny of it back. Now, if they still managed to hold on through that, that's where you saw the big pops. And here's what it looks like right now in the after-hour session. All in all, looking great. I mean, this really not giving anything back. We'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. I have myself kind of in a bearish mindset on this one. I know it's crazy to go against the most powerful security in the markets right now, but I'll be watching this one on the open. If I see any weakness, right, any profit taking on that gap up tomorrow, there could be some great shorting opportunities, but again, it'll probably be with a smaller portion of a portfolio than I would normally trade. So normally, this high price of a stock, I probably only would go in about 500 shares, be kind of my maximum on it. I might just go in a couple hundred if I do decide to go short on this one tomorrow, but I will wait and see. Because again, I'm doing my best to be risk averse, and this is extremely risky to be diving into. So what was it? What were the numbers that came out? Now, I haven't had a chance to listen to the conference call, probably is going on right about now, but I wanted to run you through some of the numbers just to show you how incredible they are. Start things off with their revenue. So there you go. Their revenue for Q2. They came out, they expected them to have 11.04 billion. They came out at 13.51 billion. That's not a small miss. I mean, that is or small beat. That is a monstrous beat. They beat by $2.5 billion. That's almost a 25% higher than expectations. And mind you, these analysts are running through and giving all their opinions about it. That's even with all the hype. Analysts expected 11.4 billion. They came out at 13.5. Monumental earnings announcement there for Nvidia. Here's what, and this is really the kicker. I should have saved this one to the end, but they're expecting their Q3 revenue to jump even more. The estimates were that Q3 was going to be 12.5 billion. Now they're saying $16 billion for Q3, and that is plus or minus 2%. Like, holy cow. The earnings greatly changed the PE? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, price just jumped 10%, although, the earnings announcement is going to be updated as well, right? So typically, if the earnings don't increase but price surges, then you're going to have a much higher PE ratio. This may actually keep the PE ratio relatively similar because earnings have gone up. I'll show you that in just a second. So here is your adjusted earnings per share. So they were making $2.07 per share. That was the expectation that they were going to have, and they actually came out at $2.70. So they beat earnings by 63 cents. Now, to Big Eb's point, having a share price increase of 9.47% as of this exact second, you got to ask yourself, well, what did earnings go up, right? What was that increase there? And I guess in order to do that math, what do you take? We had a 63 cent beat on earnings. So it goes 63 divided by 207, right? That would give you your percentage change. So 0.63 divided by 2.07. That's a 30% increase in earnings. So actually, if I'm correct here, and some of you might be better at this stuff than I am, I actually think that their PE ratio is going to drop. Their PE ratio should go down because earnings increased by 30%, yet their share price only increased by 10. Now, granted, it was 3% during the day plus another 10% after hours, so 13% increase. This may actually drop their PE ratio, right? Because yes, price surged, but earnings increased so much more. So you have those two factors to it. So great comment, Big Eb. I actually think this would decline or drop the PE ratio a little bit. Let the novice buyers jump in early and then take profits. Exactly. Well, Les, when you think about it, before I go to the next image here, just put yourself in the shoes of the average retail investor right now, right? The hype has been out there and everyone's saying how great Nvidia is doing. The proof is in the pudding, right? That came out just an hour ago. Now everybody knows how good the numbers are. Everything looks great. And every headline you're going to see tomorrow, and probably starting right now, is all about how Nvidia blew out earnings, huge blowout of earnings. And what that's going to do, just put your mind in the brain of the average investor. The average investor is going to read all this stuff and be manipulated by the media to go buy Nvidia. So what will probably happen is tonight, there'll be a whole bunch of buy orders being put in by people on their E-Trade, Ameritrade, whatever accounts. That'll flood the market. They'll end up paying the high prices, and then it'll start to fill the gap. That's just typically what happens, although, this is a bit of an outlier. You kind of feel like there's something special going on here with Nvidia. Who knows? Anyway, let me continue running on through this data. So the earnings per share was pretty impressive, 270 versus 207. We continue on this list. It kind of breaks down where their revenue came from. Right, Lisa? FOMO. And just, I want to be in Nvidia. That's what the talk track will be tomorrow around your water cooler. So I think a lot of you, when you go to work tomorrow, are going to be talking to people and they're going to be like, oh yeah, Nvidia, yeah, I got some Nvidia today. It's like, well, where were you like months ago? Exactly, Oliver. Nvidia does it again. This is the third consecutive quarter, by the way, that they've beat earnings, and I'll show you that here in just a second. So I thought this was interesting. Data center revenue, which I wasn't really familiar with their data center business, but they expected to be $7.98 billion. They came out at 10.32, so huge increase in the data center numbers for Nvidia. Maybe that's just AI storage. Gaming revenues were slightly up. You saw just a marginal increase in gaming revenues from Nvidia on this most recent announcement, and that is what I have for data. Now, I'm sure there's a ton more. I really would like to listen to the conference call and see what they say specifically about growth and learn more about the business. In all honesty, I do not own any Nvidia. I don't even have one share of it, unfortunately. Now, this is one that Larry right now is probably dancing around his house, singing dancing the jig, because Nvidia was his number one holding in that portfolio, right? He talked about buying. It was crazy. He was talking about buying this thing on Power Trading Radio in 2015, when I believe it was $30 per share. Now it's split adjusted. It's done some splits since then. I think it ends up being like $3 split adjusted. Who's laughing now? Unfortunately, I did not buy back then either. Kind of crazy. Skilled Stocksman says, right now, Nvidia cannot be stopped. Well, that's not true. It can be stopped, but I don't think it'll be stopped for the foreseeable future. When you have that big of a competitive advantage in the marketplace at this moment, and everyone's trying to buy your product, things look pretty good. You've solidified your place as the kingpin of AI and chips, etc. But remember, you do have some other pretty big companies that aren't going to sit there and just say, well, we'll do nothing about it. AMD and Intel and Broadcom and Qualcomm and all these different chip manufacturers, even if they're just remanufacturing parts, are going to be jumping on that space, because right now, where's the money? It's in AI. It's in those AI chips. I've been reducing my Nvidia position for a few months, but still had a great day. Good. Glad you had it. And you know what, Big Ab? I got to comment on that. You're probably sitting there going, son of a biscuit. If I just held, I would have made a lot more. Personally, I think you did the right thing. You had something that was trending incredibly strong. And I know someone like a Bob Dunn would say, well, why'd you get out? You're riding the wave. That thing's been trending and trending and trending. Well, at what point do you get super greedy, or are you being too greedy on this? I think that selling out some of your position and locking in profits along the way was the right thing to do. Absolutely the right thing to do. So I'll support you on that one, Big Ab. I would have been doing the same thing as well. I probably would have been out of my position. I have a hard time holding equities long term like that. Granted, I feel almost hypocritical because I'm holding crypto long term and don't really care what happens to it because my timeline's years down the road. Nice, Oliver. Bought in at 297. Loving it. You're loving that. Now the big question for you or anybody who holds Nvidia is, what do you do tomorrow? Right? Do you dump your Nvidia tomorrow on this big hype open and then wait for it to sell off a little bit? You're hearing more and more stuff. I need to do some research tonight for you guys, but I'm going to do a show tomorrow. If I can get all the data. I have a lot of things going on. This takes me hours to research. It's funny. I do the free show, but it takes hours to research one show. I think my risk reward or my cost benefit is a little bit skewed here with regards to the Trader Merlin show, but I'm going to spend a couple hours going over some banking industry data, and I'm going to present some things to you that probably most of you have never heard of and that are driving this market and creating a bit of a Ponzi scheme in my mind with real estate. And it's one of those things that could potentially be a big factor to the downside. And I'm starting to feel like more and more downside pressure is building with the housing market, with interest rates, with inflation, with uncertainty. So I don't know. I would probably be inclined to, if I had Nvidia, to dump it. And if I really wanted to buy back in, I might wait a couple days or a couple weeks and see if it pulls back, maybe even closing a gap here. Because the hype, there will be people taking profits on this one for sure. Oh, thank you, Margaret. I appreciate it. Yes, it is. I love doing it. AI tech VCs gobbling up Nvidia chips like no one's business. Trend should be up for a few more months, few quarters. I agree. Totally agree with you. And then, then it's a question of who's going to start to get into that space with them, right? You hear so much about AMD, you hear about Intel changing their manufacturing and looking more towards the AI components of it. I made this argument with Tesla years ago, and I said Tesla is probably going to face challenges in a few years because companies like Toyota and GM and Ford and Chrysler and all whatever companies, they're not going to just sit there and take it. They will start to go in the EV space, and you're seeing a little bit of that, right? A little bit of companies coming in and taking part of Tesla's business, but they're still the juggernaut. And that will probably, at least for the time being, maybe for the next year or two, continue to give Nvidia its competitive advantage, which is they're market dominant. They're the name. If you mention the word AI, everyone's brain automatically thinks Nvidia chips is the way to go. And when you have that kind of brand recognition and notoriety, that's huge for business. That's great for goodwill, value on your balance sheet. So yeah, I think Nvidia will probably continue to do well. I just, when you have big surges in price, especially when you have a jump right now of 9.55% in the after hour session, a lot of times you'll get a little bit of profit taking after a big earnings announcement like that. And it may not be tomorrow. It might be the next day. But I do think you'll see, well, mark my words, right? We're at 516 right now. We'll see from the opening price. I'll bet you within 7 days will be much lower than the opening price of tomorrow's session. So is Intel hurt or helped by Nvidia earnings? In theory, they would be helped. It's that rising tide floats all boats. And if Nvidia is this big leader out there that's pushing the whole AI revolution, then what's going to happen is there'll be other people out there who will say, I don't like Nvidia. That train has already left the station. And they'll look out the landscape and say, okay, well, who else is there? Oh, Intel, downtrodden. Price of Intel looks like garbage. Well, we'll look at that in a second. And now Intel has made comments that they're going to start focusing on AI type stuff and change the model a little bit. I think you'll get some people looking for value plays there with AI or with Intel, Nvidia, and some of these Intel, AMD, and others. So let's look at Intel. So Intel after hours surprisingly down. I actually thought they would be up, down 0.62%. But technically, you look at this chart. I actually, as a shorter term swing, I like it. I do like Intel because what's it done? It's based, it's bottomed out here around these lows around $25, starting to make higher highs, higher lows. That's great. A little bit surprised to see that it's down in the after hour session because, as I just pointed out, a lot of times that rising tide floats all boats and just kind of keeps on pushing things higher in that whole sector. But we're not seeing that with Intel. Now AMD riding that a little bit. 4% pop in the after-hours session. Right now it's 113 on that one. A similar picture to Intel, but looking better. Bottomed out right around the same time in October, but making higher highs and higher lows ever since. So that looks pretty good. This is, again, it's going to bring up companies like that. Now, what do we got? AVGO. Now, we're talking different, right? Broadcom is very different in the chips that they make, but they do make Snapdragon. Right? Snapdragon is, for mobile phones, the leader out there, and there is some potential for AI on mobile devices, and I was hearing talk about Broadcom potentially starting to expand the operations of that, and Broadcom is up 3.26% right now. So yeah, I think you'll see more and more, and there's a lot of other companies out there that might be benefited from the whole chip sector. You look at something like SMH, which, let's go SMH. This is the Van Eck Semiconductor Fund. This is going to have a whole bunch of different semiconductor companies in it. Right now, you're looking at 3.28% to the upside. Now, I'm going to do something here. Let's go out to old bar chart, which, by the way, they just got past 100,000 followers on Twitter. So congratulations to bar chart. And I'm going to bring up the ETF SMH. And this is a good practice for anybody who wants to know kind of what companies are in that sector. So I brought up the ticker symbol for SMH on bar chart. Scroll down here on the left-hand side, and you can see it says constituents. And you'll notice a lot of familiar names, right? Nvidia is 20% of that index. Nice. That's going to be a nice pop tomorrow. That's why it's up 3% in the after-hours session. But you see Taiwan Semiconductors, you've got Broadcom, ASML, Texas Instruments, Lam Research. Intel's down here at 4.6% of the index, and on and on and on. Now, not all of these do the same thing. So before you go out there and just start buying semiconductors that you think might follow in the footsteps of Nvidia, you might want to just do some research and see kind of who is in that chip manufacturing and making specific for AI. Right? All of these companies are in some component or some aspect of the chip making industry, but they might be manufacturing, they might be the customization, who knows what they do. Check them out. Den says Taiwan Semiconductor should benefit despite geopolitical issues. Sure. We can look at TSM after hours. It's the number 2 holding in here, but let's go TSM. Only up 2.95%, still up in the after hours. So all in all, looking pretty good. Now, by the way, don't cheat, don't look. What percentage of the NASDAQ 100 does Nvidia represent? Any guesses? What percentage of the, Merlin, do you have a paid account with bar chart? Maybe a perk of writing articles? I do have a paid account at bar chart, but you can get this for free. The constituents part is all for free, Lisa. But what weighting do you guys think that Nvidia has on the NASDAQ 100? I mean, this is why it's so important to look at earnings announcements. I'll bring it up for you. NASDAQ 100 weightings. There's a couple really cool sites here that you can go. Slick Charts is the one that I use for this, but it's updating all the time. So 1 second as I bring this up. Here you go. So I see markets is 14%. No, nothing's that much. The most heavy component you have here is going to be Apple. It's at 11%. Thomasina's is 5%. It is right down here, 4.49. So call it 4.5%. So it's obviously going to have a pretty big impact on what goes on with the NASDAQ tomorrow, right? That's a big catalyst for it. Anytime these big ones up here with, I would say 3% or higher, if they have a pretty big announcement and beat earnings and pop, yeah, it's going to be a mover for price for sure. So when we look at the impact, it's also nice to go out and see what's going on in NASDAQ futures right now. And you can tell that they have also, do a 5-minute time frame here for you. You can tell where Nvidia came out with the earnings, clear as day. There's this big green bar right here and just trending up in the after-hour session, the 1.58% gain for the NASDAQ 100. So pretty cool. I know it's top 10 holdings, but didn't know the percentage. Is Micron I don't know if I would throw Micron in the AI group. I'm not sure about that one, Dave. Not sure. I'm sure that some of their chip production is going to AI, but I don't know. I don't know that one. Nvidia impact on the NASDAQ triple Qs will be bigger than it was earlier today. Yeah, I mean, obviously, right? You got that 4.5% weighting of it. It's going to have a huge pop tomorrow. Not huge, but if you look at how far the NASDAQ moved just off of Nvidia, right? This is the Nvidia effect right here. measuring from the time that announcement came out, it moved the entire index up about 1%. For one company to move the entire index of 100 companies up 1%, that's pretty influential. And granted, it's not even the most impactful. If this was Apple and they had a 12% pop after hours or 10% pop, you'd see an even bigger gain than Nasdaq. But as you all know, it's not what happens right now. It's what happens tomorrow morning when that market opens up, and where do we stand with regards to Nvidia, its share price, etc. So there I go. Victorious on the day. That is your probably most significant popcorn trade of the year. Even though, Apple and Microsoft were great a couple weeks ago, this one is very important. It kind of paints the picture for AI, which I think is going to be one of the driving forces for this market going forward. Okay, I'm going to shift from there and go into, I had a couple questions, and then I'll go through a market wrap-up, and we'll call it. Leslie sent this one in. She says, I have been a holder of Peloton from about $9. Do you think it will ever get back to $9? I had a conversation with a buddy of mine. So one of my former coworkers, Carter, great guy, he bought this Peloton. And he bought it, I think it was 2019. And when he bought it, it was a couple grand for this bike. Plus, you got to pay a subscription service. And I just kind of held my head. I'm like, you fool, you dummy. You're going to buy this thing, and it's literally in a year going to be a coat rack in your garage. You're going to be like, I'm all excited to use my Peloton. I'm going to pedal every day. I'm cycling. So many people bought them, and they're sitting in the garage doing nothing and collecting dust. Now, granted, Carter is riding that thing every day. He's doing tournaments on it. So good for him. Congratulations to the ones that are actually using this thing. My feeling with Peloton was it's going to be a little bit of a fad. It'll be cool for a while. You got a little screen that you can interact with, and everybody else can cheer each other on. Pedal faster, pedal faster. But now you have so many different devices. There's knockoff Pelotons. There's the Mirror now that's owned by Lululemon, which I think is a really cool device. But, you have to pay $1,000 plus for these items, and then you have to pay a subscription fee. At a certain point, the subscription fee becomes an expense that you have to look at and go, is it worth it? Or should I just actually get on a bicycle and ride around? There's no subscription fee. Not only that, but you're actually getting vitamin D. You're practicing your balance as you're going over things. Ride a real bike as opposed to a Peloton, would be my opinion. You big dummy. Yes. Oh, yes. Red Fox, Stanford & Sons. I love that one. What are you talking about, you big dummy? Anyway, let's go look at Peloton. My little rant is over. P-T-O-N. And we'll go back to the daily on this one. And when when Peloton first came out, I was so bearish on this thing. I'm like, this, it's ridiculous. How could this be trading at that high of a price? There's no way. This thing got up to what, $170? Yeah, 171. And now you're just seeing it drift lower and lower and lower. So, Leslie, I'm probably not going to say what you want to hear. I don't like Peloton. I don't like to chart. I think that it's a subscription service to an exercise bike that you can, much better for you to go buy a subscription at the gym, right? Go get a subscription to a gym, go down there, ride their bike. The subscription to the gym will be cheaper than it is to do the monthly subscription for a Peloton. Plus, you can take all kinds of classes. You have access to all the other weights. A gym membership, in my opinion, would be way better than Peloton. Although some people don't like to work out in front of others, and they're shy and embarrassed and don't want to do that. So, all right, fine. If you're one of those people, use the Peloton. To say, is it going to get back to $9? Oh, boy. What my first question would be, Leslie, is where was your stop loss on this? I'm going to put a horizontal line at $9, and I don't know when you bought it, but there's your $9 line. And it's been oscillating above and below $9 for quite some time. So I'm not sure when you bought it. You didn't say in here when you got it. Will it ever get back to $9? I have no idea. I am not an oracle. I am not a soothsayer. I don't know. Based off what the chart is telling me and based off the competition that's in the industry, I'm pretty sure it's not going to get back up to $9. I don't see it happening. Something would have to fundamentally change. It'd have to be a surge of new people buying either the new Peloton machine or a huge influx of subscribers, or they do some real cost-cutting measures and try to drive the share price up. I just don't see that happening. And if you look at their earnings, okay, I'm scrolling back here. They were making money in 2021, but they've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive quarters of earnings misses. And those earnings misses are losing money, right? They're losing money on it. Now, granted, it's getting a little bit better, but they're still losing money. Now, how long can you lose money as a company and expect to stay afloat? No, not much longer, I don't think. So I'm not that bullish on Peloton. Sorry, Leslie. I just don't feel that they've Going to create the wheel again. What they were unique when they came out, right? It was an exercise bike that was connecting you with all these other people around the world. I'll admit that's a pretty cool idea. Yeah, Big Eb, great one. I may be echoing the sentiment of many of you. When I go to the gym, if I'm just by myself on the weights, I'll work out hard for a little bit, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm tired. I'm going to go home. If you have someone there with you to help push you on those workouts and hold you accountable, then all of a sudden I'm going to get in much better shape because I got someone pushing me. The Peloton's great because you have that experience, right? You're interacting with people, and that's great. But as Big Ev says, go down to the gym and take one of their spin classes. That's more engaging. I mean, that's like high energy, and just everyone's into it and screaming and yelling, pushing, and I don't know. I just think getting out there and actually doing it would be better than the Peloton. But again, if you can't leave your home or for some reason, Peloton might be the way to go. But share price wise, I don't think it's going to make it back tonight. What do you guys think? I guess it would be nice to know it's at what time frame, Leslie. Do you guys think that? Hold on, I can do a poll here. Let's do a poll. Start the poll. And I should have asked you this before I made my comments. Will Peloton above $9? Hold on, poll's coming. I mean, it certainly could have a bounce. What I think, Leslie, is if it does get above $9. I think you should dump it. I think you should dump all your shares, dump it if it gets back to break even, and just chalk it up to a bad loss. Or actually, break even, right? You didn't lose anything, you didn't make anything. It could pop up there, but I don't see anything that's going to sustain and reverse this trend where all of a sudden we see businesses doing great, Peloton's rocking. They'd have to come out with a new product like the iPhone. They've come out with something brand new that more people want to bring in more sales, more revenue, more subscribers, and I just don't see that happening right now. So, sorry, Leslie. I know it may not have been what you want to hear. I will show you the results of the poll here soon. Peloton made sense during COVID? Exactly. And, when you look at a lot of businesses that did well during COVID, Zoom blew up because of COVID. Now look at Zoom. I mean, what's Zoom? Is it single digits yet? 68. $68. But, you were talking to stock that during the peak of the pandemic in October was right around 600. So not like a 90% slide. And there are several other companies like that, Peloton being one of them, because now you could exercise from home, be engaged. But, yeah, we're out of that now. So, sadly, I think it changed. Need a new pandemic to salvage this company? Heaven forbid. I don't want that, John. I think we'd all agree that whole COVID BS, whether you're on the side of this was legitimate or this is a big conspiracy, that year or so of our lives we'll never get back, and what a horrible experience that was. Craziness. Anyway, moving on. Marshall, what are your thoughts on Johnson & Johnson? It's for an IRA. I'm always a fan of big brand names, especially with consumer staples. So Unilever and things like that. Great to have diversified products that people will consume on a regular basis. Johnson & Johnson's core. And consumer staples. I think that they're good. So let's bring up J&J and just see technically what we think. All in all, since the lows that we saw back here in March, it's making higher highs, higher lows. But I want to look at something first with Johnson & Johnson. One thing you'll notice about consumer staple companies like this is they generally don't have the greatest moves. I'm going back here all the way into 1984. This was $1.71. I'm sure there was plenty of splits along the way. And I guess the big picture here is Johnson & Johnson has been doing well. You're on a big uptrend really since inception. A couple big downturns. You see back here in 2008 when we had the financial crisis. There was a sell-off. You had the nice big COVID pullback. And now it does feel a little bit weaker. If I have to, look at this current price right here, I'm going to put it in a yellow box just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. If I look at this price action here in that yellow box, it looks relatively similar to what I saw back in here, where it was on a nice uptrend and then all of a sudden started to stop that uptrend and maybe make some new lows. So, as far as buying Johnson & Johnson, I guess you have to determine what's your time frame. You said it's for an IRA. Well, is it an IRA for a 30-year-old or is it an IRA for a 70-year-old? Right? These are very different objectives. I actually think that buying into Johnson & Johnson would probably be okay. Here on the weekly candle, an ugly week so far. looking at a pullback. Does it get all the way down to this 159 level? Call it 160 level? Possibly, and that might be a nice little buy point for you. So long term, I think I'm okay with Johnson & Johnson in a long-term portfolio, but again, you're going to have to ride out some of these fluctuations that we've seen. It has been weaker over the past couple of months, at least actually not a couple of months. It's been weaker since 2022 when it's been making new lows. So we feel like we might be in a transition point here for Johnson & Johnson to the upside. Let's see. Let's go to the poll. So if this is for Leslie. The results of the poll are in. Will Peloton go back above $9? Looks like 76% of you said no, 23% of you said yes. Cool. And again, no one knows who's right or wrong on this one. So those of you who said 23%, you might be totally right. I should have said, do you think it'll get up to $15? Now that might be a different question. So anyway, hope that helps, Leslie. Marshall, I'm a fan of Johnson & Johnson. I do like the level we looked at right around 160. What is it, 160 or one? Yeah, right around 160 as a potential for the longer term position. There we go. And lastly, what time I got? Okay, lastly, this is an old one that I just have not gotten to. I apologize for it. This is from Mike. It was about UPST. I may have actually done this one, but my memory just tells me that I haven't, so I will do it anyway. So apologize if I've done this one. Sometimes I go through questions and I forget what I've answered. I do so many questions for you guys. Mike says, just wondering if you could take a quick look at UPST. This is Upstart Holdings. I sold puts last week on it at a $30 strike, and I'm looking to do the same this week. It looks like a good demand zone between 29 and 31, and also a 58% decline from 72. All right. As far as what's been going on in there right now, I don't know. I think you sent this one back in last week. Not bad. Just keep in mind, if you're using this as your area of demand, get loosely drawn out demand zone. You said yours is between 29 and 31. I'm pretty close on your numbers there. And there we go, 29, 31. If you're using that as your demand zone, just keep in mind that the more that there you go. The more that it comes down to that area of demand, the more likely it's going to break below it, right? It just imagine you're chipping away at a piece of concrete and think that yellow line that I have drawn on the screen, think of that as a piece of concrete. And the size of the demand zone and different qualifiers that we look at OTA will help you understand maybe how strong that is, give you a little bit of an idea. But the more that it keeps hitting that yellow box, the more likely it'll break down. It's just chipping away at those buyers who are lined up their holding price. So I think you're probably okay selling that $30 strike. Right now you're at $32.57. So it's actually at $33.58. So it popped a bit in the after hour session. Probably Nvidia, popped there as well. But if you're selling those 30s, which is down here near the end of that bottom of that zone, fine. If you're doing weeklies, go for it. The one thing that's going to be noteworthy here is that the premium that you're going to get for those has been declining. As you had this really big drop when it came down from 72, premium was really high because people were panicking. Now that it's consolidated a little bit and that ATR is flattened out, premium's not going to be as high. ATR, I don't have it on the screen. I have an RSI. Do I have an RSI? Yeah, I just have RSI, no ATR. Sorry about that. Let me get rid of RSI and put up ATR on here. For those who don't know, ATR stands for Average True Range, and that gives you an idea of, oops, that's not the one I wanted. Gives you an idea of how much this security moves on average per day. So let's go average to range. There we go. So you can see that it was, during that free fall, was about $6.82. Now, because we've had so many flat days in a row, it's down around $4.50. And typically an ATR, for those that don't know, an ATR usually includes 14 bars. So let's count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it's including every red candle here from where my cursor is at. You guys hopefully can see that. I'll zoom in. That calculation at the bottom on the hard red edge right here, where it says 4.47 on my cursor, that includes from this first big red candle all the way across to the right. So tomorrow when we get a new candle, this big red candle is going to disappear. And that ATR is going to drop even more. You're probably going to see it drop real sharply tomorrow. This could drop down to like $3 ATR. And then in the next day, by the time we get to Friday, we'll have removed these two big candles here. And that's going to have a significant impact on the ATR of Upstart here, which should have an impact on the implied volatility of those options, meaning less premium for you. So all in all, fine. I like it, but I just don't think that there's going to be a lot of meat on that bone for you selling those options out there. Done. Sorry it took me so long, Mike, to get to your question. I know I got a whole bunch of, I'm late on a lot of stuff. Volatility has dropped too. which decreases premium. Exactly. That's the point I was making. When you have something that goes sideways, the fear's not there. As someone that sells options, you're trying to capitalize on fear. Like I love when I see a chart that looks like this. If I saw the chart look like this and it's coming right into an area demand zone like this, I'm happy selling puts there because the panic is so high. Again, falling from $72 down to 33 in just a period of 6-7 trading sessions. Oh man, some people are losing their minds, and that's where you get to be happy, right? You get to be a humanitarian at those moments because by you selling that put to somebody, you're giving them protection for their position. You're saying it's okay. I will buy it from you if it drops below $30. And typically, what we've learned is most people sell when things bottom out. Right as they're bottoming out, that's when it's like, I've had enough, I'm out, and they dump it. Or vice versa, when people get so greedy, everyone piles in, that's when all of a sudden it turns the other way. So, oh yeah, Foot Locker's implied volatility, huge this morning. So let's go FL. I was going to say a couple other words here, but I want to keep it clean, PG-13. So, you look here, and just because this one candle today, where we gapped down 28%, notice your ATR went from 78 cents up to $1.33, 34. Crazy. Selling puts, I'm a giver like that. Exactly, John. Exactly. I did well on SLV today, but I also, on many of those, so on the one end that I was mentioning with you, which was the puts that were put to me at 21 and 21.50 and 21, I sold the 21.50 calls, expiring this Friday. Now, I collected a lot of premium, but boy, I left a lot of money on the table. And the main reason I mentioned on yesterday's show was I just don't feel confident that the market's going to have any, I didn't think we'd have a huge rally. Boy, was I wrong. So I was gambling on uncertainty. I thought we'd have this little move up here, and then I thought we might kind of drift sideways, which is why I sold the 21.50s. Yeah, would love that extra 75 cents per share of SLV on the thousands of SLV shares that I own. But again, the week is not done. This could drop back down. In a perfect world for me, on Friday afternoon, silver will close at $21.49.5. That's what I want to happen. I would love to keep my position on silver. That happens, I will probably sell the weeklies at 22 or 22.50 or 23. So there we go. Foot Locker drop, took Nike with it. Yep, gotta love it. Gotta love that high premium, right? Fear. What's that line by Gordon Gekko in Wall Street? Greed is right. Greed is good. Greed works. Well, I don't think being greedy is what the term should be when something's falling like a rock and you're the one offering protection. You're an insurance salesman it's a house on fire, right? You're being a good person out there and helping them out. All right, let me go and look at our top 7 here, top 8. Just run through those real quick. We've gone on a whole bunch of different topics here today. Let's see if I get any hate mail. There's some these people keep talking about how some of these cryptocurrencies are going to go to 10,000. The guy says, I think it was Ripple is going to go to $10,000 per Ripple. I was like, guys, that would give it a market cap of $800 trillion. That's 284 times bigger than Apple, and Ripple hasn't really done much yet. So come on. It's just the sheer craziness of people out there. All right, let me go and run through our markets. Here is the top 8. I'm excited to say who's a number 1 today. I kind of need that little relief rally for myself. But here is your number 8 position. That is crude oil. So crude oil broke down below that 78.68, which we've been eyeballing as kind of a little bit of a line in the sand there for it. The good news is we broke it, but came right back up. And here we are above that 78.68 line. So that's technically still rather good for it. If we get a close below it, that's when things really get negative. Dollar index, the Dixie. A bit of a red candle out there today for Wednesday, long topping tail above it. That typically would be a bearish indicator from the red body here, a long tail, but we'll wait and see. I've been wrong with those calls lately, that's for sure. Here's your 10-year. So yields dropped significantly today. Right now we're in the new session, but as far as bond yields dropping, I'll give you the percentage from the close of yesterday. The 10-year dropped about 3%. That's a pretty big slide for one day. You notice one of the bigger red candles on there. But keep in mind, when we've had a big red candle, it hesitates for a little bit and then seems to have a nice big rally out of it. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But The 10-year bond was down about 3% today. Gold, 1.15% move up. So that demand zone that was there, it's holding and it's reacting now. Overhead supply zone on it looks to be right around 1975, and then that 2000 comes into play again. Russell 2000 was fourth place. I don't think there's anything special here about the Russell, just because you had kind of sideways for 3 days and now a little bit of a green candle, but it hasn't broke out of anything. Doesn't look like it's ripping. S&P 500, similar picture, although a little bit better than what we saw with the Russell that was up 1.09%. Again, that's as of right now. That includes the pop and pull that we're getting from Nvidia and a couple others. What was the other one? Nvidia was in, not Adobe. Was it Adobe? ADBE. No, it wasn't Adobe. It was Autodesk. Is it Autodesk? Yeah, Autodesk looking nice in after hours as well. Here is your 5 minute of Autodesk. Yeah, so Autodesk had earnings and they're popping as well. So you got another tech company there to help out those indexes. NASDAQ was your second place finisher, 1.58%. Rocking. Thank you, Nvidia, for making this one happen. And finally, your big leader on the day, Bitcoin. Hallelujah. Bitcoin up 3.54%. And, there's a big drama unfolding in this space right now with CZ of Binance, with U.S. Marshal Services, with BlackRock. All of a sudden, an unknown account accumulated $3 billion worth of Bitcoin over the past couple months. And that's now come to be that is actually Robinhood. Their account has been accumulating. So a lot of things swirling in the crypto world, uncertainty with regards to what's going to happen with this spot Bitcoin ETF. But coming up here soon, we're going to have a lot of decisions need to be made by the SEC as to who is going to get approved, because someone will get approved. All right. Let's see. What else do I got here? Nike should go back up a little because Kobe's shoe line released back up again. Really? Is this a posthumous shoe line? Let's look at Nike real quick. So Nike was down 2.67% today. There's your chart of it. Are we coming in an area of demand? Nothing looks great. You got about 92. Looks like that next level where I'd be interested in it. Longer term, this thing's been doing nothing since late 2021. Pretty ugly chart there. Let me see what the weekly looks like for Nike. Yeah, I don't know. Personally, not for me. I don't see anything really here that screams that it's a great buy right now. If anything, it looks like I'd be shorting a rally. Looks like it's drifting lower. Regardless of Kobe, I think it was his birthday. I think he's 45. He would be 45 years old today. Let's see. Merlin, do you have short calls on all your silver or just some? So I sold calls on about 90% of my holdings of silver. I have a not small, a couple thousand shares of SLV that I haven't done anything with because I'm kind of letting that ride in one account. So it's earmarked for riskier, but everything has calls against it. Vast majority has calls against it, and that's going to be at 2150s. I've also got the 22s, and I have one that's at 2250. Though the 2250s are for September 15th. The 2150s and one of the 22s is for this Friday. There you go. Was there more of a pullback so you could buy calls on Microsoft? Nah. I'll wait. I'm not greedy. Look, if I can just chip away at these markets, I did want Microsoft to come down a little bit more, that's for sure, but here's your weekly on it. Didn't do what I wanted it to do, but it's okay. No worries. I got no problem. I would love to have bought it if it closed this gap at 282, somewhere around there. All right, that's going to do it for me for today. Tomorrow, if I don't want to make any promises here, but if I can pull it off, we're going to do a bit more on housing market tomorrow. And there's always these little nuances of the way that the markets work. And most of it, honestly, you'll never hear about, right? Most of you probably never heard of the repo market, right? MicroStrategy? Yeah, that's not going to pull back. Most of you probably didn't hear about the repo market. Now that's kind of most people know about repo markets. We had Bill Addis talk about it a bunch to understand how that weird mechanism of our financial markets work. Tomorrow, I'll hopefully present one to you, which I would make the argument is responsible for why we've seen this housing market go so gangbusters. And it's an organization that's been around since, I think, 1932, if I'm not mistaken, is when they actually started this. But most people have never even heard the name, won't know what I'm talking about, and I'm hoping I can convey that to you, not only what it is and how it works, but also the problems it's maybe facing some of our major stocks like Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab may be in a serious position where they could, and people are saying it could be a Lehman Brothers moment for Charles Schwab, and the more that I look at it, I'm starting to feel that way. But we'll look at that tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll have to do it till Friday, but it's all if I can get the research done. That said, I need to go walk the dog and go to the gym. Got that challenge. Got to get ready for my Jamaica trip, so get that beach belly ready. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, email me, TraderMerlin@gmail.com, or put your comments and questions down below the YouTube videos. I always appreciate that. Now, oh my God, you saw a whole bunch on there the other day. Love it. I always go through those, and I'll try to interact with most of them and put the questions into our window here. I did not tell you about your economic calendar or earnings for tomorrow, so why don't I do that real quick? Sorry for bringing you back into the show. I was just about to wrap it up. If you look at tomorrow, you have the Jackson Hole Symposium. It's starting tomorrow, and I didn't mention that in the Monday Morning Must Knows for OTA, but this is a pretty big one. Now, Jerome Powell typically speaks on Friday's session, but he might have something to say on the Thursday session as well. That can create a lot of volatility. You do have the BRICS Summit. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Vladimir Putin said, we need to abandon the U.S. dollar. Wow. We've not seen that coming. Putin, of course, is going to keep saying that. Now it goes back to my comments I made the other day, which is it really depends. Now, do these other countries band together and say, you know what, we'll start to reduce our exposure to U.S. dollars. We'll start to sell from our treasuries U.S. dollars, dollar-denominated products. That could have a pretty serious impact on the currency markets and equity markets. But that's a topic I think will be unfolding, or a story that's going to be unfolding over the next couple of years. But Putin obviously pushing that agenda to get the U.S. To get away from the U.S. dollar. So there is your economic calendar. Other than that, you have natural gas storage, you have unemployment claims, and durable goods orders. And then from the earnings front, here's what you got for Thursday. You have Marvell Technologies, chip makers. You have Ulta Beauty, Workday, Nordstrom's, Dollar Tree, Burlington Stores. I was actually really surprised to see two retailers this morning post great numbers. Look at Abercrombie and Fitch. Didn't see much of a shoplifting issue there. I guess yuppies don't steal. I don't know. Kohl's stores as well. And then you had Foot Locker, which just got annihilated on their big earnings miss. Maybe people stealing shoes and not fancy jeans, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. I'll wrap up with that. Thank you guys so much for the show today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for the comments, questions, feedback. For those of you who are new, hit that subscribe button. For those of you who are regulars, hit the thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't, email me and tell me why at TraderMerlin@gmail.com. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.